Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to tonight's Family Connection workshop on the dangers of youth vaping. My name is Leslie Riccio, and I am a family outreach representative with the Office of Family and Community Engagement. I will be the facilitator for tonight's session, where we will learn staggering statistics about youth vaping and e-cigarette use. We will hear from a representative from the American Heart Association about trends amongst youth and identifying risks. We will also learn information on how to talk to kids about the dangers of e-cigarettes. Before we get started, I would like to remind everyone that the Office of Family and Community Engagement will continue to have Family Connection webinars on a variety of topics throughout the school year. Please be on the lookout for information about upcoming sessions. As mentioned, the focus of this Family Connection is the dangers of youth vaping and e-cigarette use. Let's welcome our panelists. Brianna Ricks, Community Impact Director for Hampton Roads from the American Heart Association.
Hi, Leslie. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you for being here. Tonight, we will hear a presentation from Ms. Ricks, and then we will finish up by answering the questions that were submitted for tonight's event. I'm now going to turn it over to Ms. Ricks to begin her presentation. Ms. Ricks?
Thank you, Leslie, and hello, everyone. Again, I'm very excited to be here this evening on this wonderful Thursday. It was a beautiful day. You know, I know we've had a couple of rainy and gloomy days, so I was excited that it was actually sunny outside today. So I'm not going to delay us any further. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just bear with me one moment. All right. And can everybody see my screen? Okay, you can go ahead and nod for me, Leslie. Great, perfect. All righty. All right, so as Leslie mentioned, my name is Brianna Ricks, and I am the Community Impact Director with the American Heart Association of Hampton Roads. Just a little bit of background about me and my role. I've been with the American Heart Association for about 2.5 years now. And I mean, those years absolutely flew by. You know, time flies when you're having fun, you know, making an impact. That's what I always like to say when I'm mentioning that to people. Interestingly enough, I started in the midst of, well, at the beginning of the pandemic, really. I started March 16th of 2020. So as we all can remember, that was a very interesting time for all of us. And it was very interesting for me learning how to make an impact in the Hampton Roads area. So just very excited to be here with you all. So enough about me, and let's go on ahead and get started on the subject for this evening, which is a very interesting and, you know, more popular subject these days. And I have titled the presentation, The Truth About Tobacco and E-Cigarette Use, also known as vaping, as you all are aware. All right, so I always like to start my presentations off with, you know, who is the American Heart Association? I'm sure that many of you have heard of us and have heard of us in the community and all the things that we do. And I think that a common misconception with people is that we only deal with things in regard to heart disease. And yes, that is the case. We are doing a lot of things when it comes to heart disease and high blood pressure and all those things. However, we are very focused on many other things as well, hence this tobacco presentation that I'm doing for you all. And our mission is to be a relentless force for a world of longer, healthier lives. And I really enjoy sharing our mission with everyone that I come in contact with, because I think it's very unique. You know, relentless means to, you know, be just that, to, you know, be never ending, you know, not ceasing, you know, tirelessly working to, you know, be this force for a world of longer, healthier lives. We envision a life without heart disease and many of the other chronic conditions that can be a result of, you know, having, or risk factors of having heart disease as well. But interestingly enough, you know, the word heart is not in our mission for a reason, because we focus on things outside of just the heart. And you all will see that as well in the next couple of slides. And we are also getting ready to come up on our centennial year. So that's 100 years for the American Heart Association, will be in 2024. And we're celebrating that by focusing specifically on an impact goal. And that goal is every person deserves the opportunity for a full, healthy life. As champions for health equity, by 2024, the American Heart Association will advance cardiovascular health for all, including identifying and removing barriers to healthcare access and quality. And I just love that, because it just goes to show that we are working to break down barriers and really working with the community to focus on things that contribute to heart disease that you may not necessarily think contribute to heart disease. And lastly, on this slide, this is how we're driving equitable health impact. So as you can see, these are our 5 areas that we are focusing on as an organization, starting with healthy living, so improving nutrition security and building mental well-being. Also still taking a special focus on controlling blood pressure because that is one of the primary risk factors for heart disease. Ending e-cigarette use and tobacco use, which is why I'm here today. We'll talk more about that in a minute. That also is a significant risk factor and contributor to heart disease in all populations. Addressing community needs, so supporting research when it comes to COVID-19, as well as other community response like the emergency room and things like that. We're taking a primary focus there as well. And lastly, our Go Red for Women movement, which takes a special focus on women because the number one killer of women is heart disease, and a lot of women are not aware of that. So we're working to make sure that women are aware of their risk. All right, so the topic of the evening, preventing and controlling tobacco and e-cigarette use. What is the American Heart Association doing? Why do we care about tobacco and e-cigarette use, especially among our youth? So I always like to start with statistics because, it's one thing to tell people that there's a problem, right? But for me, I can tell you all day that there's a problem with tobacco. There's a problem with vaping. It's a serious issue here in Hampton Roads. But, if I don't have any statistics to show that to you, then you likely would not believe me. So tobacco is the agent that is most responsible for avoidable illness and death in America today. It's a significant contributor to heart disease, as well as many other chronic conditions that people suffer with as well. So on the screen, I have listed each city, the amount of individuals that are 18 and older and utilize tobacco. So that's cigarettes specifically. So I'm starting with that. As you can see, these are not the best statistics, and they are all much higher than both the state value as well as the national average as well. So it's clear that there's absolutely some work to do in our area. So what exactly are e-cigarettes? E-cigarettes are it's a different ball game from just regular cigarettes. A lot of people, when you say vaping or e-cigarettes, they don't really understand what that means per se. But vaping is the act of inhaling and exhaling the aerosol, often referred to as vapor, which is produced by an e-cigarette. So when we say vaping, we're talking about the act of utilizing e-cigarettes and vapes. Also important to note, a lot of the particles that are within this vapor contain varying amounts of toxic chemicals, which I'll also speak on here shortly. And they've been linked to heart and respiratory diseases as well as cancer. So of course, you can see why we're taking a special focus. You can see why we are really, cracking down on this issue and doing whatever we can to address it and raise awareness, because it does contribute to heart disease as well as many other conditions. So what does that mean for our children and young adults? I can think back in the day with, the menthol cigarettes and just the cigarette commercials in general, that generation was absolutely addicted to cigarettes. So we're saying now that the e-cigarettes and vaping, they're addicting a new generation because they're targeting our youth and our children. 1 in 4 high school age kids now report using e-cigs, or they report that they are vaping. They are the most popular tobacco product among adolescents. So we have a whole other issue here. Not only do we have to worry about our youth and young adults smoking cigarettes, but we also have to worry about them utilizing e-cigarettes as well, which are just as lethal as cigarettes. Nearly 90% of smokers first try a tobacco product by age 18. But if someone has not started using tobacco by age 26, they are likely to never start. That's why it's so important for us to get the information and the word out to our, families and the families of our young adults and children, because the longer we can, keep them from utilizing these devices, the less likely they are to utilize them later in life. Many adolescents falsely believe these new products are safe, and that has a lot to do with the way that these products are marketed. They make them seem like it's not a big deal. It makes it seem like everyone is doing it. It's not that serious. And a lot of times they don't realize that these products often do contain nicotine, which is also in cigarettes. So the risk is still just as bad as utilizing tobacco. And I also have come up with some numbers specifically in regard to our school systems in the area. So as you can see, I don't really want to pay too much attention to the way the numbers are, but I really want you to pay attention to how the numbers are increasing. So as you can see, for example, just looking at Virginia Beach, in 2016 to 2017, the number was 28, which isn't a lot of, incidents where students are caught with these devices. In 2017 to 2018, it jumps up to 174. And the following year jumps all the way up to 363. So clearly, Virginia Beach is not alone. Of course, the other cities are experiencing issues as well. So it's very, very evident that there is an issue here. What's in e-cigarettes? A lot of students and, their families and just people in general do not even really realize, they don't, realize the risk with e-cigarettes, but they don't realize what is also in e-cigarettes and why it's so risky to utilize them. So I put a few on the screen for you. I could have probably filled the screen up with all of the materials and all the things that are in e-cigarettes, but I decided not to do that. I didn't want to overwhelm anybody. But just to name a few, 3-butadiene is a chemical used to manufacture rubber. So that has been found in e-cigarettes. Arsenic, we've all heard of that before. It's often used to preserve wood, and it can be linked to cancer of the lung, skin, liver, and bladder. Benzene is used to manufacture other chemicals, can also cause cancer. Cadmium is a metal, as well as chromium, which is used to make alloy metals, paint, as well as dyes. I often hear all the time of metals that are in this vapor that comes out when you're utilizing the vapes and e-cigarettes, and it's just ridiculous. Also formaldehyde, we're familiar with that as well. That's another lethal chemical. As well as polonium-210 and tar. Tar is also in cigarettes as well, but it also has been found and linked to a lot of the e-cigarette devices as well. And I also wanted to make sure that I shared what a lot of these devices look like, because they don't really look like it's something dangerous, but I think it's very important to just have a visual of what these devices look like so you know what you're looking at when you may not even realize that it's an e-cigarette or a vape pen. Very discreet in most cases. And a quick video for you all.
First, they said cigarettes were safe. We know how that turned out. Now, they say they didn't market e-cigarettes to teens? Fact, more than 1 in 4 high school students are vaping, and 80% say their first e-cigarette was flavored. Vaping is harmful to developing brains. The reason we think vaping is safe? Marketing. Same lies, different day. Tell Big Vape to quit lying.
All right, that's from our Quit Lying campaign. That is one of the campaigns of the American Heart Association. And we utilize that because, this marketing is really what's targeting our youth and our children and young adults and, making them feel like vaping is safe for them. So I know you're probably wondering, what are some of the effects of vaping and why, do we keep saying that it's so unsafe and that, kids and young adults should not, or really anyone shouldn't be vaping? The main thing is that there is nicotine in these devices. So nicotine can harm the developing adolescent brain. And that's probably the main, issue and the main thing that we are really trying to drive with these campaigns is that, since our kids and children are utilizing these vapes, they do not even have their adult brain as of yet. So if they're, intaking, these chemicals and, these other things that are in this nicotine and other things that's not safe for them, it's going to ultimately affect the development of their brain. And as you know, addiction occurs in the brain as well. That's that's a whole separate issue, and it can really drive other undesirable behaviors. It's linked to depression and other issues that children are struggling with as well. And I also wanted to share that this is not just an issue here in Hampton Roads, it's an issue nationally, as you can see on the graph. And the area where, we're seeing the most increase with e-cigarette use is among our high school students. As you can see on the screen, there's a comparison of the high school students and the middle school students. And the high school students, of course, since they're older, that makes, sense, of course. But you can see that it is just a nationwide issue. So how is Big Vape targeting our youth? Well, a lot of different ways, really, but mainly through the marketing. But they are doing some other things that people may not, really be aware that they're doing. One is offering scholarships, believe it or not. So several e-cigarette companies are offering scholarships ranging from $250 to $5,000, and it's focusing on asking students to, submit essays about whether or not they would be interested in vaping, or if they do vape, just so many different things that you wouldn't believe. Creating a buzz on social media. Social media is a huge thing now, especially for our young people. And as you can see, I think this is a Twitter post that I was able to find. And, on social media, they make vaping and using e-cigarettes look cool and make it look like it's okay. And there's not many risks associated with it. So of course, that's why, our students are going to feel like it's not a problem because everyone else is doing it. Sponsoring music festivals and events, that's pretty self-explanatory. These companies that are producing these e-cigarettes, they are sponsoring so many different events that you probably wouldn't even think that they sponsor. And lastly, introducing appealing flavors. And I'll talk about that as well here shortly. But they do offer kid-friendly flavors like cotton candy and gummy bear. They make it look appealing to kids. So of course they're gonna, kids are gonna want those things because it's what they're used to already. The fight against big tobacco is constantly changing. So of course, when we started with our advocacy efforts, we started with cigarettes and tobacco products. We advocated for laws to curb use among teens and kids. Then we started with e-cigarettes, specifically Juul. We advocated for laws that ban flavors targeting kids. And today, actually, e-cigarette companies like Juul can no longer make certain flavors because they are targeted towards children and adolescents and teenagers. And disposable e-cigarettes, something called Just Puff Bars, is a new product on the market. It's a disposable e-cigarette, which allows it to be even more discreet than a regular e-cigarette would be. It's not covered under our current laws. So they can sell flavors that are appealing to children. So there's always something that we are constantly having to go against when it comes to the fight against making this not be available to our children. And now we're going to meet Claire.
I'm Claire, I'm 16, I'm a junior. Well, I started vaping when I was probably in 8th or 9th grade. It started through sports, honestly, just people on my team, like that was who I was with most of my time. I didn't like it at first, it hurt, I coughed, I was like, this is icky. I think we need to deal with mental health and the reason why people are using. Personally, for me, vaping was a way to have something else like use to cope with my mental health, to cope with my depression, to cope with my anxiety. I would go through 3 pods a day, which would be, like my pods held about like 2 milliliters. And so 2 milliliters of juice, if you like look it up, is equivalent to like a pack of cigarettes worth of nicotine. And so technically I was inhaling 3 packs worth of nicotine. I got so scared, but I was too scared to tell anyone that this was happening to me because I knew I was gonna get in trouble. I hated it, and yet the addiction was so strong that I kept using. And my parents, they did not have the reaction I thought. My mom was like she sat me down and I talked to my mom and my dad for like a solid 2 hours. Life is not easy, like school's not easy, friendships are not easy, but you need to make it through this hard point in your life so that you can have your future, and addictive chemicals aren't going to help you get there. It's not going to get you to where you want to be.
Wow, how I always get just chills when I watch that video. She said a mouthful. I think one of the things she said was, I was inhaling about 3 packs of nicotine a day. Wow, wow. It's just so moving. And, that's the point really of, presentations like this, because a lot of times people do not realize, the magnitude with these devices, and don't realize how harmful they really are. So I'm sure, after all this information, which may have been overwhelming, so I know you're probably asking, well, what can I do? And I really want you to walk away from this. If you don't hear anything else, I want you to hear that as a parent, your influence is powerful over your child. It's very powerful. And here are a couple of ways that you can really, work with your children and speak with them and begin conversations about vaping and using e-cigarettes. So it's important to maintain a dialogue. Start having conversations early. Don't, wait until you know that they're, utilizing these devices. Begin the conversations with them early so they know what to look for. Think more than just cigarettes. Explain that smokeless tobacco, hookah, and e-cigarettes are all dangerous, and they are all, not immune to nicotine addiction. You absolutely can get addicted to all of these things. So make sure you point that out to them. Preparing your kids for peer pressure, that goes back to social media. And I think she mentioned, Claire mentioned that she started because of sports. So she probably saw some of her teammates utilizing these devices and thought it was cool and wanted to get in on it as well. So make sure that your kids know how to handle peer pressure. And if they're not sure how to handle those things, make sure they're comfortable enough to come to you and speak up. Set a good example. If you smoke or vape yourself, there are resources for you as well. The best thing that you can do for yourself as well as your children is to quit, and if it's difficult for you to do, which, we absolutely understand that this is not, something that is going to happen overnight. At the bare minimum, don't smoke and do it around your children so that they, see what you're doing. They're likely to mimic, what they're seeing. And lastly, which kind of goes hand in hand with setting a good example, establish a smoke-free home. So any family members, friends, visitors, anyone like that, don't allow them to smoke in your home or your car. Make sure the places your child spends a lot of time are tobacco-free. So then at that point, they are less likely to, engage in the behavior. And lastly, I want everyone here to sign up for You're the Cure, and I'd be happy to send out the link and information for how you can sign up for that. And that is how you can keep up with all of the AHA's efforts in the tobacco endgame movement, which is our movement against big vape and other tobacco products. You can subscribe to updates, and most importantly, you can get in contact with your local leaders. Let them know how you feel about utilizing e-cigarettes and the laws that allow them to be sold and marketed to our children. The more the merrier. They can't just hear from us. They have to hear from, the parents of the children that, this epidemic is affecting. And that is all I have for you all this evening. And I would be happy to take any questions at this time. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. That was such useful and impactful information on the dangers of youth vaping and e-cigarette use. We will now move into the question and answer portion of the evening. I would like to thank all of you who sent in questions for tonight's session. Let's jump into some questions that were sent in. I've heard that vaping will help me quit smoking. Does that mean that vaping is better than smoking?
No, that is absolutely not the case. And, in a, past position of mine, I was a medical outreach worker. So I was able to work with a lot of different patients that had a lot of chronic diseases and a lot of social factors, and a lot of them actually smoked. And they asked me so many times, well, I actually just started vaping, and that's going to help me quit smoking. And vaping is better for me because it's just water vapor. And as you saw in the presentation, that is absolutely not the case. So vaping is just as bad for you as utilizing cigarettes. It still contains nicotine. Not only that, we know cigarettes have significant other chemicals that are not good for your body as well, but so do e-cigarettes. So it is, and the other thing that I want to mention here in regard to that too, that a lot of people don't realize, cigarettes have been around for a long time, but e-cigarettes have not been around for that amount of time. They've been around for years now, but they still have not been around for the amount of time that cigarettes have been around. So I said that to say, we know the effects that cigarettes will have. There's been plenty of studies in regards to that. But unfortunately, we know that e-cigarettes have a negative impact on your body, but we don't know to the extent as of yet when it comes to cigarettes versus e-cigarettes. So to me, that makes it even more of a reason why you shouldn't even you shouldn't even vape at all. So no, vaping is not better for you than smoking cigarettes. It is just as bad for you.
Thank you. You have gone over this a couple of times, but it probably bears repeating a little bit more here. Is there nicotine in e-cigarettes and vapes?
Yes, there is nicotine in e-cigarettes and vapes. That's an easy answer. And I also wanted to add, which I've mentioned this many times as well, there are also many other chemicals. I mentioned a few in the presentation, but like I said, there are so many that I didn't want to overwhelm anybody with the amount of chemicals that can be found in e-cigarettes. But yes, they do contain nicotine as well as many other chemicals and products that you may not even be familiar with, so you don't know the negative impact that they can have on your body.
Thank you. One last question. What resources are there to help either myself, my children, or someone I know quit tobacco or vaping?
Yeah, of course. So specifically for children, children and adolescents and teenagers, young adults, I would specifically recommend our Tobacco Endgame website. And I would be happy to share that with you, Leslie, if you would like to send that out to everyone. But what I really like about that website is it's not people like, me and you that are telling kids and young adults, hey, don't do this vaping, stop smoking. It's not good for you, because more than likely they are not always going to be as open to listening to us, because you know how kids are. They expect us to tell them not to do things that are not good for them. But this website, it has information from other kids that are experiencing, these issues, that have vaped before, that have struggled with quitting, that know the negative impacts that it had on them, and, tell them that you can stop. It's not good for you and you should stop. So that's why I recommend the Tobacco Endgame website specifically for children, students, young adults, teenagers. They will gain more from that website when it is someone that looks like them. Specifically for, older adults, I would recommend our VA Quit line. I can share that information as well. And what's good about that is they support you if you're smoking cigarettes or if you're utilizing the e-cigarette. And also, if you want to go to the American Heart Association's website at heart.org, there's also other information on the dangers of utilizing tobacco as well as e-cigarettes. You can find there what the American Heart Association has been doing in our advocacy efforts and why we are taking such a special focus on eliminating tobacco and e-cigarette use. And it's just a plethora of different resources on that website as well that can encourage you to quit and, offer you other mechanisms and things that you can do if you're a smoker because you're stressed, and there's a lot of stress relief techniques and whatnot on our website as well.
Wow, you guys have a lot of really great resources.
Yes.
That wraps up our question and answer session. So I would like to thank our panelist, Ms. Ricks, for her time, expertise, and thoughtful responses. I would also like to thank the VBCPS community for taking the time to be here with us virtually this evening. As a reminder, these sessions are recorded and will be available on vbschools.com. And before we go, I would like to remind everyone that we will be holding our Restock and Roll event, which will be a drive-through supply giveaway on November 16th from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. This event will take place in the parking lot of the Faith Center located at 641 Carriage Hill Road. We will be providing free backpacks, school supplies, weekend food bags, and more to all VB Schools families. We hope to see you all there. Have a great night, everybody.